Hello and welcome back. I'm Sean Fox and you're watching another episode of Made to Ramble. And in this episode, we'll be taking a look at the GoPro Hero 6 and we'll also be checking out this wearable waterproof gimbal from Feiyutech. This is the WG2. I only received these in the mail a few days back, so on the weekend I took the opportunity to put them both to the test when I spent the day at Adventure World with my family. I already had the GoPro Hero 4 Black, which I used quite a lot in the last year or so. The GoPro Hero 4 doesn't have any stabilization, but when paired with the GoPro Karma Grip, with its comparatively small profile, this fantastic combo is very useful for capturing additional B-roll on the move, particularly in situations where a larger gimbal just wouldn't be practical. I found it pretty handy, for instance, while on the gorilla trek in Uganda last year. It's not only small and easy to use, it's also pretty rugged. I can certainly say that I've put that to the test. Now, the headline feature on the GoPro Hero 6, even beyond the 4K 60p, is the hugely improved electronic image stabilizing. For most people with the stabilization as good as this is, they're not going to feel a need to purchase an additional gimbal. I, on the other hand, just really like the kind of footage that you can achieve with a gimbal, being able to imitate crane shots and that sort of thing, so the Karma Grip will definitely be remaining in my filmmaking arsenal. So, given that the Hero 6 works fine with the Karma Grip, you may be wondering why I would bother to purchase another gimbal. Well, there's a few things that attracted me to the Feiyutech WG2. For one thing, the WG2 is waterproof. Not just a little weatherproof, but actually waterproof. Now, while you're obviously not going to take it diving with you, you can safely submerge it in water for up to a few minutes without worrying that you'll kill the gimbal, which is pretty reassuring if, like myself, you've often found yourself wading across rivers during jungle treks. That's probably not going to be an issue for most people, I guess, but it would also be reassuring during a heavy downpour, knowing that it's definitely up to the task. And it's also pretty handy for taking out on a boat, for instance. If you do take it out on a boat though, make sure you use it with a floating handle. Otherwise, if it falls off the side, you're never going to see it again. I should point out that the WG2 has one very weak point where submerging it in water is concerned. While for the most part it's very well sealed, the rubber plug which protects its charging port has a tendency to keep popping out. While I was brave enough to attempt submerging it, I did not do so without holding that plug very firmly in place. The other really handy feature that sold it for me is having the ability to program the gimbal to rotate during time-lapse shots from one position to another at a speed of your choosing. To do this, you simply press the button 4 times, move the gimbal to its start position, press it again, move it to its finishing position, press the button again, and it automatically moves back to the start position and begins the rotation. You can pan up and down as well as rotating up to 360 degrees. You can control the speed via an app on your phone. It's a very cool feature and I found it works really well. So how well does the gimbal work? It's pretty good. Like most gimbals, it has several different modes, including a sort of locked off mode and a following mode and a selfie mode. I did find that during a strong gust of wind, especially in follow mode, the WG2 really struggles to compensate. The motor is nowhere near as strong as the Karma Grip, even with the settings at full, so it's difficult to use in these conditions. But in fair weather, walking with a gimbal is pretty comparable to the Karma Grip. You can probably see for yourself that the weather was pretty nice while we were at Adventure World on Sunday. I was hoping to try taking the gimbal down a slide or two, but unfortunately it's really too heavy to wear comfortably, and there aren't any slides at Adventure World that would be safe to descend while hand-holding a gimbal. While the WG2 might be pretty good for mounting on a helmet or a vehicle, I think it's a bit of a stretch to describe it as wearable. You could not comfortably wear it with a head or chest strap. So with the gimbal out of the way, let's talk about my impressions of the GoPro Hero 6 itself. I normally shoot most things in 4K, either with the intention of exporting the finished video in 4K or just editing on a 1080p timeline. Lately though, when it comes to filming on a GoPro, I seem to be favouring 2.7K. This is because I'm not much of a fan of the fisheye distortion that you get with a GoPro, and filming in 2.7K allows me to use the linear mode. Realistically though, it's pretty easy to correct for the distortion in post these days, especially using Premiere Pro, so I should probably consider using 4K again. And the really cool thing is that with the GoPro Hero 6 now, it's possible to use stabilization even in 4K 30p. Or 25 as I'm using. The GoPro Hero 6 allows you to film in 1080p at frame rates up to 200 frames per second. I had a pretty good chance to try that out, and I must admit I was astonished to realize just how slow 200 frames per second is. I mean, that is crazy slow motion. I do think that the image is a little soft at those frame rates, but I made the mistake of not removing the ND filter that I had attached during the slow motion shots, which means that because of the much faster shutter rate that's needed for slow motion, the GoPro would have needed to compensate by pushing up the ISO quite a bit, which is why the footage is very noisy, and I suspect that this might also account for the softness. The 200 frames per second as well as the 4K 60p use a different codec than most of the other video settings. They use the H.265 codec rather than the usual H.264. This codec produces smaller file sizes while maintaining very high quality video, but playing back the footage is very CPU intensive. This may mean that you need to transcode before editing, even if your system is pretty fast. Now I tend to use proxies when editing with Premiere, so this is already a part of my standard workflow. So that's just about all that I have to say, but I will add just one last comment regarding the GoPro Hero 6. Moving from the Hero 4 Black, I'm not used to having a screen, so it's been nice being able to compose my shots properly now that I can see what I'm filming. But even more than that, I'm really impressed by how easy it is to navigate the menus using the touchscreen. It's nice not having to keep fiddling around with a combination of the 3 different buttons on the Hero 4. The Hero 6 has a great and simple to use menu system. When they originally announced the GoPro Hero 5, I was pretty unimpressed with its specs, which is why I never bothered to upgrade. But the Hero 6 represents a huge upgrade from my Hero 4, and hopefully it's been popular enough to keep GoPro afloat for a while to come. 2017 was not the best year for the company, but it looks like they might be bouncing back. Fingers crossed. So thank you all for watching. I hope you got a little something from this video. I'll be back again with another music video next Tuesday. So until then, if you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button down below. And if you haven't already, subscribe. I'll see you again soon.